I'm Kamal Fisher, and welcome to the Sequire Spotlight. We are at the LD Micro Invitational here at the Four Seasons Hotel in Westlake Village. With me, I have Mr. Ross Dove, CEO and Board Director of HGBL. Welcome, Ross.
Hi, Carmel.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Please fill us in on what Heritage Global is all about and what are your plans for the future?
Heritage Global is on fire right now. We're doing great. Heritage Global is an asset services company that operates on two platforms. On financial assets, we sell primarily charge-offs, people like Lending Club, people like PayPal, etc. And on the industrial asset side, we sell for very strong, healthy companies like Pfizer and Amgen. And we also do recession-type assets. We're the auctioneers who did Enron, Drexel, etc. Companies growing and doing well in this environment.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. We're all currently experiencing a very similar situation across the board, right, with the market as it is. But wonderful to hear that you guys are still, progressing through all of that, right? So a little bit more about you, Ross. What is your background and why this industry?
Well, actually, I can't take too much credit for it. I have to go back and give credit to my grandfather. My grandfather was capable of going bankrupt during the Great Depression, and he went to work for an auctioneer afterwards. My dad came home from World War II without a job. My grandfather hired him, so I was born into the business without really a choice. So I'm third generation. My brother was my partner. My sons are fourth generation. So we've been doing it forever. So that's my background.
Well, that's wonderful, and I think that...
I'm only 35 years old, though, Carmel, so it was
that old?
Very brief, yes.
Come on, I thought you were a little younger than
There
that.
you go.
Well, you look great no matter what age you are. Ross, that's a wonderful segue into the fundamentals of the company. I mean, you guys aren't a startup, for sure. You speak about decades of running this business and being born into it. Talk more about the fundamentals of the company and what investors should know that makes Heritage Global so unique.
So Heritage Global is the outgrowth of the Dove Brothers family business, which was the Ross Dove family business. It's now a public company through a reverse merger. So Heritage Global has literally an 80-year history. Our DNA is very much a family business, even though we trade on the NASDAQ. We're under 100 people, small micro cap, $45 million value. But in the end of the day, we're in a growth platform right now where the market is moving in our direction in both sides of the business. And it really is run like a family business. My brother was my partner. My sons are in the company. Most of the employees in the sales force actually grew up in my backyard. When we sold our prior company, we wound up having a non-compete, and we hired all the kids my sons went to school with.
Wow.
And 10 years later, they're supporting me now.
Wonderful. Supporting generations and then keeping the business growing and sustaining it, right? That's always what the market wants to know and the investors. What about Heritage Global in particular are you most passionate about?
So if I look at Heritage Global, the thing that I really am proud about, we have no turnover. The people that joined 10 years ago in this company are all almost still here. Nobody wants to leave. Everybody's really proud of where they work. It really has a family feel to it. Everyone's a shareholder. Everyone takes care of each other. And it's got a we win together feeling that makes me feel good to get up and want to go to work.
Amazing. And I think that we spend so much time at work, right? That should really be a really good environment, one that's pleasant and collaborative. And it sounds like that's what you're bringing your personal culture into your business.
So the whole goal is for everyone else to spend a lot of time at work and me to get to fool around and goof off because I've got world-class employees supporting the old guy.
You're a smart man.
If it works, yep.
So let's touch a little bit on the global pandemic, right? We're just about coming out of that. I know last year, this time at the last LD Micro, everyone was really in the thick of things with the pandemic. Now that we're seeing the end of, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, what impact has that global pandemic had on the business?
So it hindered my financial asset business in the fact that we were not prepared for the pandemic to really affect the amount of charge-offs and the amount of credit spending. During the pandemic, people stayed home. They weren't using their credit cards. They weren't flying. They weren't traveling. They weren't out at hotels. They weren't out at restaurants. So without a lack of credit spending, there was a lack of volume in charge-offs. That's coming back now. We're now kind of turning into a post-pandemic curve where people are out spending money. People are doing a lot of the buy now, pay later. A lot of the fintech loans are growing. As those loans grow, supply grows, and that's why our volume is going up. On the industrial side, something really interesting happened in the pandemic. The supply chain got really clogged, and I've never seen a clogged supply chain have a greater impact on used equipment. The value of used equipment went up when people couldn't buy new equipment anymore without 3-month, 6-month, and 9-month backlogs on ordering new equipment. So they started flooding our auctions, and all of a sudden we became popular. That got coupled with everybody now converting to this ESG component in their companies, and all the big companies really caring about the environment. Honestly, for the first time ever on the back end of the supply chain, and not wanting their used equipment to go into landfill, which they never cared about in the past. So now it's all about repurpose and reutilize, and all of a sudden an auctioneer turned into an environmentalist.
Very, very interesting. Now, a lot of the buzzwords.
Are you just saying that, or are you
No,
really
no,
interested?
I'm actually processing. I think that you make a few very good points, but it brings me to my thought around the buzzwords out there now: inflation, the rate hikes. You love your people, clearly, and they've been with you for a long time. How will you effectively manage this situation and the market conditions as they stand?
So the one structural thing in running a company forever is we've built the DNA of the company on variable compensation. So pretty much everybody that works at Heritage is basically earns their money on what they produce. So it's a company full of hunters rather than a company, full of just employees.
Right.
So people's destiny is really in their own hands. The more they produce, the more they make. And I have an ultimate goal. I'd like to be the least paid person in the whole company. That would be one hell of a successful company.
CFO, are you listening?
My CFO, he can be the one guy paid less than me.
Oh, there we go. All right, we have to touch on both the strengths and the biggest challenges affecting HGBL. Can you just elaborate on those, different sides of the spectrum there?
So when our company struggles, and this is over a 40-year period, our company struggles in what I'll call a really boring economy. We do great in a bull economy when there's lots of mergers and acquisitions. It creates surplus. If Pfizer with $50 billion in the bank buys somebody, they don't really want the factory equipment. They want the intellectual assets. They want the patents. They want the scientists, and it creates surplus. In a really struggling economy, when companies are closing up, we do great because they need auctioneers. But in the middle, when everyone's afraid to make a move, there isn't enough supply. And
Right.
so I worry about there not being enough supply, because no matter how good you are at executing,
Right.
we're product driven. And if there's not enough supply, we can languish. So I just want action.
Right, right.
Either really good times or maybe a little distress, but not so much a boring economy.
100%. So, with the knowledge of that challenge of the supply chain issue, what steps can you take to make sure you manage that?
I think in the end, you're going to see a real drive for American manufacturing to reemerge, and you're going to see factories offshore closing more than what we saw in the last 15 years. We saw a lot of American factories closing where people outsourced the manufacturing
Right.
and moved to Asia, moved to lower cost production.
Right.
And we saw how that damaged the supply chain and how it impacted with the higher cost of shipping now, the higher cost of transportation. Factories being very far away from the users are no longer as important. So when we see what's really going from offshoring to a transition back to onshoring, we're going to have to be servicing clients really globally.
Heritage Global.
There you go. That's the name anyway.
That's the name. So, okay, you've said quite a lot and it's excellent information to ingest. What 3 key takeaways can you leave our viewers with?
So what I told people during my speech is, I believe right now, the people at this conference who are looking for a stock to buy should look hard at this being a great entry point at Heritage. When I tell everybody we're going to have a record year, I'm not saying we're going to have a record year starting 3 quarters from now, 4 quarters from now. I'm saying we're going to have a record year starting today. So the one takeaway is this is the right entry point, and that will beat the other 2 takeaways I'm not going to give you.
Well, I like a bit of mystery, and you heard Mr. Ross Dove. Get in on the company now. Take a look at their fundamentals. It's a company that's been around for a very, very long time. Where can viewers get more information about HGBL?
They can HGBL trades on the NASDAQ, and they should be able to find the information readily. So Carmel, I would ask you, step up today and buy some. Fair enough?
I'll have to take a look at all the details,
All right.
Definitely feeling a lot more positive after this interview. Ross, thank you
Have
so
a great
much.
day.
You
Bye-bye.
as well.